Okay, let's take a look at the process of working with these hotel transactions to deal with your guests and their stay. To begin with, you'll note that I've gone ahead and created some reservations in the software so that you can see how the name appears on there, and then the color changes based on the status of the room. I've also created on tomorrow, I've created another reservation so that you can see as you go through each day on the calendar, you see what the status is of your rooms for that specific day. Now, to create a new reservation, at this point in time you'll see that I have no room selected as the active room. If I click on a button for a room, that becomes the active room, and that becomes the room that's going to come up as the default if I go into the reservation and check in, or if I go into the checkout. So let's go ahead and select a room, and then we'll select reservations and check-in. Now, on the reservation and check-in screen, you'll notice that there are two tabs of information that need to be filled out. One is the basic guest reservation information, which will include basic contact information about your guest. It will include information about the room, including the rates and the room types that you've booked, a list of all of the rooms that are going to be considered a part of this reservation with the totals for the transaction. And then on the second tab, under Guest Credit Card and Guest Identification, you'll have the credit card information for that guest. You can actually swipe their card right at that point, and it'll store the information. Or you can key it all in, and then you've also got the guest identification information, which would be their driver's license information about their vehicle, whatever else you want to get. And then finally you have some reservation notes that you can keep on file relating to that reservation. So let's go back to the guest reservation information tab. The first thing you'd have to do is put in your guest's name and a phone number to reach that guest. You also have the option of entering an email address, an additional phone number, and a birth date. Now, the next step then would be to select the rooms that you want to book for this reservation. Now, you'll notice again that it's come up with room number 101 as the default. That's the room that we had selected when we opened the screen. And then down here, the parameters for the reservation, including the arrival date, which will also default to the date that was the active date on the reservation screen. So you have the arrival date, the number of days that the guest intends to stay, the tax-exempt status, whether or not tax should be charged on these rooms, and the rate type, which would be based on the 7 different rate types that can be assigned to a room type. This would be which of those rate types we're going to use. And we've defaulted our software currently to use 3 as the default rate, which is the rack rate, but if it's a high volume time, you might set that to be 1 or 2, or however you choose to deal with the pricing. The next entry then would be the number of guests. Based on the number of guests that you define and the type of room that it is, the rates for the room will be updated based on the occupancy figures that you support. So we'll set that back down to a reasonable room occupancy. And then you can select the rooms. You can view all of the rooms. So currently we have double selected as our current room type, so we see all of the double rooms that we've defined, and we can select one of those rooms. If we wanted to pick a different type of room, we would just need to select that room from the drop down, that type of room, and then we can select the pick room button and see which rooms we have available that are of that type of room. So at that point in time we can go ahead and book the room for the number of days that we've specified. Let's go ahead and make this a 2-day booking, and it'll tell us that we can't do that because we've already booked this room for another date. So let's change our room, and we'll book this room. So now we have this room booked for 2 days at a total price of $150. And if we need to add an additional room, we could select the room type, pick the room, and we can add that room to the booking as well. So you can have as many rooms as you want in one reservation or booking at a time. That's not a problem. So at this point we can now save the reservation, and after the reservation is saved, the screen will clear and it's ready to take our next reservation. If we were in the middle of a reservation and we realized that, or the guest called and decided, or changed his mind on the phone and said he wasn't going to go through with that reservation, you can just hit clear form to reset that. You also have the option to print a reservation while you have a reservation that's loaded. We can load a reservation that we've been working with, which would then give us the option to print it, and from there we can also cancel the reservation if the guest calls and tells us that he's not going to stay or whatever, to release those rooms. So that's the process of making the reservation. Now, depending on the configuration of the software and the manager options that are available, you may be required to enter the credit card information here before you can save a reservation, but that's configurable on a hotel by hotel basis. With a completed reservation, if we exit the screen, you'll notice that the screen is now, the front desk screen is now updated to reflect the information about that reservation. And you can select those rooms, and you can go back in and look at that reservation again. So if you wanted to add additional rooms, you'd have the option to do that by just selecting to book more rooms. And if you needed to change these rooms, you could also cancel that specific room. So let's say that we wanted to double instead. You could cancel this particular room 113, and then you could pick a new room. So let's go ahead and select the room type that we're looking for. Select a new room, and you can book that room instead. If you need to change the duration of a stay, once you've booked the room, you'll not be able to do that. You'll have to cancel the room and rebook it with the appropriate date parameters. So that gives us a definition now of a reservation, and we can save that. And you can see now that our screen is updated with the parameters of that reservation. The next step in processing hotel transaction would be the check-in, when the guests actually arrive and are ready to check into their room. This is also done through the reservations and check-in screen. If you have an actively selected room, then that room will come up, or that entire folio, that entire reservation will come up when you select the reservation. If you don't, the value is blank. Then when you select reservations and check-in, you can use the load reservation option to locate your guest and load their reservation. The next step then would be to check in the room. Now you'll see I have multiple rooms here, and I have the option to prepay the rooms at this time. If you want to require payment for the rooms, you can do so. You can prepay for them one at a time, or prepay for all rooms, or we can go ahead and check in. So let's go ahead and check in these rooms. I'm going to check in room 303, and it tells me I need to enter the guest's credit card information before I can check the guest in. So here in the credit card number field, you could enter in credit card information. And it's also going to require me, based on the parameters that I have set up in the system, to enter a driver's license number. So now I should be able to check in that room. And you'll note that when the room is checked in, the color of the room changes to the golden color there. Let's go ahead and check in the other room. Oops. Let's go ahead and check in. Okay. And I didn't enter the guest information that time. So I've now checked in the guests for both rooms. So this is now a completely checked in room, and I've created a folio for this guest. You'll also note now that if I want to change the parameters, I can't do that because the room has been booked already and it's already been checked in. If I did need to change information regarding this reservation, I could go to the checkout screen where I could load the folio, and I could change the duration of those stays. It'll tell you that it's added booking to the room, to that room for that. So you can work with the rooms after they've been checked in, but you have to do it through the checkout screen rather than through the reservation screen. One function that you'll commonly be required to do is to add room charges to a folio or to a room once that guest is checked in. And so let's take a look at how you do that. That's done using our touch point of sale module or our restaurant module. So we'll take a look at doing that through the touch point of sale module. And so this might be something that you do at the beginning of every day to log all of the charges for the prior evening, or in some fashion like that. So you'll go out of the hotel system into the business system and use the touchscreen point of sale module. From here you'll use the POS sales function, and you can refer to the POS training videos for more information on how this works. But to show you a very quick example, we can cashier in with our cashier ID. And now we have an open ticket, and we can add charges to that. Now I've gone ahead and put some of the common fees on my Touch POS menu, but you could also select those or key them in as a pay-per-view charge or whatever you've defined in terms of your programming. So let's go ahead and void that item, and we'll just use our button here because I've set the button up so that it will prompt for a price. So this guest has $10 worth of pay-per-view charges, and he also has $5 worth of telephone charges from his stay. So this time I've created a ticket, assigned the appropriate taxes based on how all of those products are defined, and I can now use the put on account function to assign that to the room. What I'm going to do, rather than just picking an account, is I'm going to specify this as a hotel room charge. Now at this point in time, I can key in my room number, and so here's an active room that I have, and it'll show you all of the information for that guest, so you can verify that that's really the right folio for you to assign that charge to. And if it is, then you can do approve room charge, and it'll now send that out as a part of their transactions, or as a part of their charges for that room. So when we go now back to the hotel system and we look at that room, look at the guest data, you're going to be able to see that there are now some other charges assigned to that room, and here is what they are. It's a charge that came in from the Touch POS, and here are the totals. So that allows you to add room charges to a room that's open. The final step in processing a guest will be when they're ready to go and it's time to check out their rooms. And this can be done using the checkout function. So I'm going to go ahead, even though I've reserved this room for 3 days for this particular guest, I'm going to go ahead and check out this folio right now. So we can select the folio, select cash out, or from the cash out or the checkout screen you can select load folio and pick the folio that you want to work with. And again, you'll see all of the basic information regarding the folio, as well as a list of the specific rooms that are a part of that folio. If there are additional charges that have been submitted to that room via room charges, then you'll be able to view what those charges are and see the total, and that will be included in the total for the rooms. Finally, as you look at the specific rooms down here at the bottom, you'll be able to review the parameters for that, and you'll be able to change the information for those. So let's go ahead and set these both back to be just 1-day reservations. And so now we've just reserved these rooms for 1 day, and we can go ahead and check them out. And you'll see we have a folio number here that's different from the confirmation number. And you'll also note that we have the option to check out either the currently selected room, which is 104 in this case, or to check out all rooms together. I'm going to go ahead and well, before I do that, you also have the option to change a room number. If a guest needs to be reassigned to a different room for any reason, you'd come here into the checkout form and reassign the room number by simply keying in the new room number that you're assigning them to. But let's go ahead and check out this guest. So we'll select check out all rooms, and here we have the cash out screen. With the cash out screen, you'll notice we have credit card information at the top if they're going to be paying with a credit card, and then you also have a line for each of the 4 different payment types, including gift cards. Now you can pay for hotel rooms using our gift card software, and for more information regarding the gift card software and gift card processing, please contact Business Software Solutions. But for the other 3 payment types, you can either enter an amount using the number pad over here and then click that button to assign that amount as the payment, or you can simply select one of the exact payment buttons to make it an exact payment of that payment type. So over here you'll also notice that we have some quick buttons with predefined amounts, and as you click those buttons you'll see that it just adds that amount to whatever is currently there. So even if I were to put in $15 and then hit 10, that would bump it up to 25. So it just adds this dollar amount to whatever number is currently stored as the value, and then once we've entered a value you can assign it to a field over here by simply selecting the appropriate button. Let's go ahead and just make this an exact cash payment. At that point in time I can hit cash out, a receipt will print, and it will go ahead and cash out and close out that entire folio, or that specific room if I selected just one room number. This folio has now been cashed out, the guest has been checked out, and it's now a part of the historical files. At this point in time, if for any reason we needed to do anything with that folio would have to be reopened through the manager functions, through the reopen closed folio function that's available there.